Let's try it like that. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Setup is almost perfect. Almost. Skip it a doo dip a dip a don't do. Skip it up and dip a don't do. Got the sleeves rolled up for the relaxed, classy look. You're not wrong, Taryn. You're not wrong. Hello, everyone. Super Blerd is about to begin. Unfortunately, have some sad news to start off the show, but we'll get started with some really cool stuff later on. So, some really good conversation. A lot of things have happened in the last 2 weeks, so I think this is probably appropriately timed. I don't feel like it needs to be every week. Could I get more stuff done every week on this? Yeah, I also think, but I think there'd be some weeks that are slow. And I don't necessarily want to stretch a show, so I like the topic length that we have at the end. So, also, if you're liking this setup, apologize for my chair being right there in the background, but I'm liking it. It's pretty good. We still got some camera work to figure out on this setup, and I am still kind of split between my where my desktop is set up and the laptop. But I think soon I'll be able to get everything to run on here, or sorry, show will probably still being produced on my desktop. For the nerds that want to know how things happen behind the scenes, I still have my desktop here. This laptop's more for reading notes as I go along and talk for the show. So, but I can't control everything from here. So, we're working on it. I think it's gonna be good. I can still see your questions. I'll pop over here to check your questions. So if you ever see me relating over here, it's just because I can't quite have the screen where I wanted it to get the camera off of me and everything quite yet. So we've still got some testing to do. Hopefully we'll get it down pat and really have everything set up nicely. But that said, it's Super Blerd Variety Hour time, and we start with our first news topic. We talked about this Monday, or sorry, no, we talked about it on Wednesday. Paul Mooney, who's an activist comedian, passed away at 79 in his California home. Former journalist on news, he's still a journalist, but former News Channel 1 journalist Roland Martin was the first one to report the news. Tweeted that the legendary comedian died, suffering a heart attack. From Brittany Danielle at the Root. She also talks a little bit about Mooney and that, last night me and Tom talked about him on the Dave Chappelle show, which I also shout out to Dave Chappelle for just bringing recognition to folks that just hadn't had it, particularly Paul Mooney. Now, you think someone that worked with Richard Pryor would have a lot of attention on them, and he did to some degree, but he never got the stardom that Pryor did, and I'd like that Brittany and Danielle at the Root gets into that as far as in her article and breakdown on his life, and that while his writing for Richard Pryor shot him to stardom, Paul Mooney was uncompromising in his ideas, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but he was hella black. If there's ever a term for hella black, Paul Mooney would be that. So by him not relinquishing that, he did not fit in Hollywood well. Now, Paul Mooney today, if he had started today, would probably be fine. You think about everything that he said throughout the years, if he started out today, he'd be fine. So I think a lot of comedians should give him a lot of credit for their ability, especially if you're a black comedian. Your ability to be able to say what you want on stage is directly tied to Paul Mooney running for that wall first and setting up other comedians to be edgier than they would have been otherwise without his pushing and creative process. So, Paul, you'll be missed. Negro Damas, if you remember from the Dave Chappelle skits, will be missed. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. We get a little bit of sports news. We have another pass away. Lee Evans, who's a record-setting U.S. sprinter, 1968 Olympic activist, dies at age 74. So this is in the same year that, actually, let me make sure I get Tommy Smith, John Carlos, they raised their fists as they received their medals. Evans was warned to not do anything similar during his time on the podium, so he put on a black beret. So he didn't raise his fist, but he put on a black beret to support the Black Panthers and their civil rights activism that was going on in the States during the Olympics at that time. Was the fastest 400 meter champion that year, and had cracked it by 44 seconds. Or sorry, was the first one to crack 44 seconds at the 400 meter. And has had a legacy of civil rights in his home country in Nigeria. And he was something that's a little sad though. He had been trying to, his family, because he'd had some heart issues. He had suffered a stroke the week before he passed suffered a stroke last week. Was trying to get back here to the States for medical care. They weren't quite able to accomplish that, and he passed away this week. So a little bit of additional sadness to that ending there, but wish his family all the best in the world. And reminds me of an episode we did not do here on Nerd Union, but me and Shelby Johnson did, talking about me and Shelby Johnson and Katrina Rogers talking about different or the importance of competition in Black communities, particularly when it comes to sports and what that does for us, and the platform it creates when we're talking about civil rights movements and bringing attention to social issues. Lee Evans is definitely in that pantheon of athletes that has done that. So sad to hear that. And we will be moving on to bash on Twitter a little bit. It's not that hard to do. So last October, Twitter promised to reevaluate its image cropping algorithm. So if you don't know what that is, when you load a photo onto Twitter, automatically it will try to crop it to what it thinks is the appropriate dimensions for how you, like if you're using it for a... So basically, in your timeline view, the photo is going to be smaller. You can click on it and see the bigger photo, but it's going to like crop it to what it thinks it should be. So it's almost like not better off Salt. I can't remember this. It was the ABC show where the engineers had not considered Black people going for. I think maybe it was Better Off Ted. Had not considered Black people in the show, had not considered Black people going for these cameras, these motion censored doors. So only white people would go through the doors. And then the Black people needed a white person to help them get through the doors. Just driving home that analogy, but really there's a major engineering failing that happened there. Hey, Trevor, thank you. I like the jacket as well. Dun, dun, dun. And so that's immediately what it makes me think of. And if I can find that... video, I might post that link to y'all later. Trevor says it is Better Off Ted, so thank you very much. So in comparing the algorithm's preference between men and women, in addition to in treatment of white and Black individuals, the company found an 8% difference in favor of women and a 4% favor towards white people. What it didn't see was it didn't seem that the algorithm was reflected toward a built-in male gaze, though. Testing it against images of women, Twitter found the algorithm only cropped out about 3 photos in every 100 to a location other than face, and when it did so, it didn't focus on specific body parts. Instead, it narrowed in on elements like numbers on sports jerseys. So it could be an explanation they offered is about the contrast potentially for that, is that the algorithm may be focused on that object on the... So if you had a Chicago Bulls, you have a big Bulls logo on the jersey, it might be seen as a face. So, I had to totally agree with that. Still needs... It's not a... I do like that they call themselves on that. What did he say? It's not an excuse, just a potential explanation. This may be an instance where algorithms are not the best judge for what the crop should be, and that this would be better left to humans. I think that would be quite wise, Twitter. So, and I apologize, I don't have the Twitter official that gave that explanation, or it just says the company. That's the notes I put down, so it just says the company. So I don't have who officially said that, but Yeah, sucks that happened. You need to get more diversity into your UX, into your design teams, and folks that are testing that. That would help you avoid this in the beginning. But I'm glad they're making the corrections for that. And again, I think letting people just do that on their own is probably the best bet. And they said it right from the horse's mouth. Gray mentioned bathroom sensors not recognizing darker skin tones a few years back, and they used that this past year on my papers on technology in the modern age. Yes, being a black person trying to use hand sensor, motion activated sinks is, oof, it's so frustrating, especially if the sink is dark. If it's like a black granite countertop, you might as well just leave. Yeah. And they'd be like, why didn't you wash your hands? I wasn't going to be able to anyway. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not. Anyway. Next up, I promise we're going to figure out a better way for me to pull these photos up. Muscle on Muscle Man, Michael Jai White, is launching Gigantic Studios. Now, normally I'm not one for puns, but Michael Jai White could probably take me out with one subtle kick to the ribs, one punch to the face, just make my brains explode out the back. So if he wants to call it Gigantic Studios, then I'm not going to say anything. But if you may have known him as he played the original live-action Spawn, played a gangster in Dark Knight. It's had a ton of martial arts movies come out, like straight to DVD. So just fantastic actor. Comes from the Connecticut area. So his studio is going to be launching in New Haven, and it wants to be a bridge between New York City and Boston. And wants to make it an industry hub for Yale University's drama school and different collegiate acting schools in the area. So yeah, this could be a really good middle point between the two cities. Sounds smartly, seems wisely placed. Lets him go back to his hometown area. Yeah, so I'm all for it. I'd be curious to see what the first things that come out. Sounds like his Black Dynamite sequel will be coming out of this production studio before it gets picked up for distribution. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. But yeah, Michael Jai White. I'm down for it. We're going to be talking about a lot of black studios and productions kicking off. One I forgot. I want to give a shout out to Michael B. Jordan, because his company is working on Creed 3. Didn't have time to... There's a lot of people I didn't have time to throw in here because we'd be here forever talking about all the new things. But as a kid that grew up not having a ton of that, this is really awesome. So it's really cool seeing all these things getting greenlighted. All right. And wrong mouse pad. Henry Golden's moment is here. So he's announced as the star of the new G.I. Joe movie, Snake Eyes. Now, I'm excited more of him for getting the role than I am, per se, the movie itself, because I don't expect this to be any good. Like, G.I. Joe Retaliation was better than the first G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. So, I mean, hey, get your money, get your popcorn. I mean, get your blockbuster flick in. So I'm not knocking that. But his studio... Longhouse Productions. So they were the company that got behind and did Crazy Rich Asians. So you already know that Henry Golden starred in that, but he was also, his studios helped behind that. Has inked a deal with SK Global. SK Global helped distribute Crazy Rich Asians across globally. So Henry Golden's inked a deal with them. So the next sequel for Crazy Rich Asians will come out from his studio in conjunction with SK Global. And that's a 2-year deal. So it's not just for Crazy Rich Asians. It's whatever other productions that he comes up with. So nice job, Henry. Congratulations. I don't know where that voice came from, but that's just where we're at, folks. But check out the Snake Eyes trailer. It's pretty cool. As actually, for speaking of representation, I was talking about being a kid and not having all these black producers. Having a Asian actor in a big blockbuster movie. I'm not talking about, this is not a knock on Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan or Jet Li. But they didn't always get the headline blockbusters until later in their careers, or had tons of success in their home countries before finally making it over here. Like in Hollywood success. So this, and like Snake Eyes, like while it will be have some martial arts elements to it, having that GI Joe brand, being a bigger think of it like if he been given a Fast and the Furious spinoff. That's kind of what I feel like this is about equivalent to. Obviously, Fast and Furious makes more money than the GI Joe franchise, but Henry Golden's probably getting ready to sell some toys. So, Trevor says, "Wait, that is a thing in real life? Wait, what thing in real life? Oh, the sensors? Yes." So no, I wasn't making that up. Yes, that is a real problem. That is indeed a real problem. It's a shame that it's a problem, but it's a real problem. All right, so we got a Michael Che doubleheader. If you don't know, Michael Che has been a writer on SNL for many years, and then eventually moved to Weekend Update with Colin Jost, and has gotten more and more involved in different skits. So he talks about an Avengers sketch that didn't make it to air, generally because a lot of people think of SNL as a white show. And I don't disagree with that per se. It's kind of weird that there was a time period where SNL at least had moments of blackness, and I would say mostly when Eddie Murphy was on the show. Eddie Murphy and Chris Rock in particular. If Eddie Murphy or Chris Rock did a skit, I don't think anyone was going to be thinking SNL was white in that moment. Again, SNL is majority white to most of its time on air. But if Eddie Murphy famously has a sketch where he basically white faces to see if he can get bank loans, get a job, just see preferential treatment. It's a ridiculous sketch, but that's a very black sketch. That predates Dave Chappelle's white newscaster, Chuck, by almost 20 years. So it's kind of weird that SNL can do that, but then Lorne Michaels also won't sign off on. Now again, this sketch might have been it could be a race issue, but it could also just be a matter of like being too edgy. But when Chris Hemsworth was going to be on the show a couple years ago, it was going to involve the Avengers accidentally killing an unarmed black teenager. Part of me is immediately laughing at the idea of that because I just want to know like where would they have taken that sketch. There's so many problems with the Avengers already, so I'm really curious. Like, wow, where were you gonna go with that? Now, in my opinion on Michael Che, he can be back and forth. He can have some sketches that are like on point. He can also have some that ain't quite, so there's also a point that maybe this is a Che sketch that just wasn't good. That leads me into the next part. Michael Che didn't quite understand the backlash from the Gen Z sketch. SNL was just getting run from the ringer the last weekend. Honestly, we didn't want. I think the majority of the public just did not care about Elon Musk being on the show. So a lot of people were tuning out anyway. Maybe this wouldn't have been a news story if it had just been some other sketch. People probably would have ignored it. But it was about Gen Z kids talking at a hospital or something. You can look it up. It's not a really good sketch. It's not a great sketch. But people got upset because it was using AAV, African American vernacular language, what typically words and like phrases in the way that are associated with black people. If I have to tell you what black voice versus white voice is, go look that up. I'm not going to do that right now. Sorry to bother you. Go watch the first couple of minutes of Sorry to Bother You with Lakeith Stanfield and Danny Glover. If you need some examples. But Gen Zers definitely have taken in that language. Whether it's right or wrong, I think it was pretty obvious, and I have to at least defend the sketch in this way. I thought it was pretty obvious that it was awkward to hear them talking like that. So people were talking about it wasn't credited to black people. I kind of felt that was the point, that Gen Zers wouldn't be crediting black people, that they've heard that around from, and it's made that a part of the language. So I don't know if you saw the sketch and you have the same thoughts, but Michael Che being confused, I'm also confused. I don't get it, Michael. Me either. Again, your sketch wasn't that great. There's other issues, but that part I was like, I didn't quite get. All right, moving on. This is kind of a wild apology. Kevin Feige. apologizes for whitewashing in Doctor Strange. It's not something I would have thought they would dive into. And if you're wondering what whitewashing happened in Doctor Strange, specifically, they're not talking about Benedict Cumberbatch, or at least the opportunity to switch that character out. Because, let's see, Stephen Strange has typically been white throughout the years, but specifically, it does kind of bring in that white savior trope of someone goes and learns a Far East martial art and brings it back to the United States and does it better, or is the chosen one that was supposed to, the traveler that was the chosen one to come in and learn that and be the next, like, so it does, like, his role still is problematic, but they where they kind of ran into additional issues is the Ancient One being a Asian character, the old wise Asian monk of some vague degree, and then you cast Tilda Swinton in it to like change it up. Now, I don't think that was a terrible idea. It just wasn't the most progressive idea that you could have done. And Kevin Feige admits that they weren't going to do the cliche of the wizard old wise Asian man, but there still could have been a way to have Asian representation there and not fall into the cliche. And there you go, Kevin. Yeah. I mean, you could have done younger. I mean, Tilda Swinton's not that old, so you still could have had like a middle-aged. I mean, throw Ken Watanabe in that, and I don't think anyone cares. And I love Ken Watanabe, but I don't think anyone would care. I think we'd be fine. Heck, he played the fake Ra's al Ghul. How about in Batman Begins? So I think letting him have an opportunity to actually sink his teeth into something better would be. I mean, because he was only on screen for like a scene. Or two scenes in that movie. So I get it. Or maybe, I don't know. They could have thrown some different things together. At the time, I didn't hate the Tilda Swinton casting. It still has its issues. Because again, it's an opportunity that you could have cast something different. Or maybe Kevin's also saying that, and this goes back to the Doctor Strange thing, maybe if you switch Tilda Swinton up, maybe that would have been a good time to get an Asian actor in there to play Doctor Strange. I think that was the thing that all of us were kind of saying, like, this would be the no-brainer switch. So could you stomach Tilda Swinton being like the gender swap in that role, but getting the Asian representation in the main role? I would have been good for that. But let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, and Taryn's, yeah, that's exactly. They were trying to be progressive by casting women, but since she was white, this is where they fell short. So yeah, there's a couple different ways that could have gone about that and help adjust that. Trevor's like, Benetad Kumquat isn't American. Isn't that enough for people? No, Trevor. All the British people are taking all of our American roles. They're taking all of our American jobs. That's not an actual diatribe I would get into. So for folks that have no idea who we're talking about, let me make sure I throw a photo up of Tilda Swinton there. All right. And then we're going to move to... I actually did not get the trailer for this up before we started. This is a Lee Daniels reboot of The Wonder Years, narrated by Don Cheadle, with Elisha Williams playing the... Oh, sorry. That is too many Williams happening. I'm like, what is going on? Don Cheadle is playing Dean Williams, whose younger self is played by Elisha Williams. Goodness, that is confusing as heck. I thought that was another family member in the show. All right, but the trailer looks like, I mean, if you like the Wonder Years and this is gonna be the Black Family kind of spinoff of it, I think it'd be pretty solid. And also I like Don Cheadle. Now, a disembodied Don Cheadle is not necessarily my favorite, but he could also show up in other ways in the show as well. Now, how the general public will react to a fully black cast of a popular white sitcom from the 80s, I don't know. This would be like a Growing Pains recast. Trying to think, Leave It to Beaver of a black cast. I'm trying to think. This is getting into that kind of territory. Just thinking of some other, a black Andy Griffith. Gosh, you know what? I said that and someone's gonna do it. I apologize in advance if those shows come true. I really do. I apologize in advance. But yeah, feel free to check out the trailer on your own time, and we'll keep tabs on it. Not promising we're gonna cover it because y'all know my schedule is crazy. It is hectic. All right. An unfortunate moment with the cast of iCarly. So this is a photo of Lacey Mosley, it's a new character to the iCarly reboot show, and Miranda Cosgrove has come out in their defense, because there was a bunch. They referenced they didn't specifically call it the team member, but they said did not stand for like racist taunts and comments towards their cast members. Paramount Plus also jumped on with this. So there's an iCarly reboot coming to Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus holds the Nickelodeon rights, so that's where it's coming to. Miranda Cosgrove and most of the crew is back to shoot that show. And they didn't mention who it was specifically, I guess, to try to also take some heat off from their cast member and just do a blanket statement. So at first my eyes were like, why didn't you mention her name? But I can see the wisdom in that, of just kind of hopefully I didn't think the iCarly fans would be racist to the co-star, but those kids would be younger than I am. So, and again, it's not saying that racism doesn't skip definitely hits every generation. It's just it's shocking to me. Like, wild comments like this every generation is apparently very capable of clapping onto a keyboard and letting the vitriol out. So, I guess I should not be surprised. But Lacey Mosley confirmed on Twitter through a statement that the most positive experience of working on a reboot has been overshadowed by the most racism I've ever experienced in my life over the course of 72 hours. Dang, y'all. Dang. Come on now. But she went on to thank her friends and family who reached out to check on her, and her cast members as well. So, yeah. Shout out to the crew for stepping up early and getting on top of that. But I'm just really sad to hear that I have to call out iCarly fans. That's not a sentence I thought I'd be uttering in 2021, but yet here we are. Trevor, sorry, go back to my Andy Griffiths. A black Andy Griffith set in the 50s and 60s would be dark as fuck. You just made a gritty reboot of Andy Griffith. You know what, Trevor? I kind of want to see it now. Ooh, I've had this idea for a black cowboy for the longest. Or like a black, like kind of taking Blazing Saddles, but like grounding it, make it serious. And so, yeah, but I could just switch the setting and make him a sheriff. I'd be fine with that. Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic. That was so a joke. But now that you posted that time period, yeah, that'd be crazy. And the thing is, I wonder if there's stories out there that I don't know about. I wonder if there's real life equivalent that I don't know about that's out there. But yeah, let me back up, but I don't have a photo for this one, so I apologize. Have you ever looked at stock photos in the photo aisle at Walmart and thought, we need more gay people? Yes, I'm being serious. Specifically, though, as an editor, I sometimes get stock photos or stock videos added to my videos if you just need some people doing things. And Storyblocks has caught onto a pretty large gap in those videos. There's not a lot of LGBTQI representation in those videos. So if you're straight and particularly white, you're represented very well in those stock photos and videos. But when it comes to black representation or minority representation, and particularly when you get to getting queer representation in that, it's pretty lacking. So Storyblocks is working to create a campaign called Queer Spaces and Faces, which would be their Webby-nominated restock campaign of diverse and inclusive imagery. So if you want to be able to use those in your media projects, you can support them and be able to have a larger and more diverse repertoire of things to add into your editing. So that's not a commercial for them, although, hey, Storyblocks, if you want me to stomp for you as an editor, I would love to do that. But yeah, it's one of those, like, it's one of those story blocks that like I wasn't thinking a ton about, but once they brought it up, I was like, yeah, that is a thing, because there's not a lot of black people on those. And then I have, let alone queer representation on that. It's just not there. So that would definitely be appreciated. Trevor said, I would just assume they were roommates. Oh man. Oh gosh. A gritty reboot of Blazing Saddles. Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be really interesting. And you're saying Buffalo Soldiers, so yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Ugh. Obviously not a grounded Buffalo Soldiers. You just tell the story of Buffalo Soldiers, but yes, I think that'd be really cool. All right, we move on to our main topic. Sean the Rhymes. No, I kid. So I teased with the Michael Jai White and Michael B. Jordan. Let me adjust my chair. Scoot, scoot, scoot. So I teased that there's just a lot of fantastic black directors and producers happening here in Hollywood. And but I want to start, I'm kind of going to do a spectrum. And this is just highlighting some people that have been really on my radar. There's way more than this, actually. This is not to snub folks. Like, I don't have Spike Lee on here, but obviously he's been on a tear recently as well. And I already said I missed Michael B. Jordan. There's a ton of people I did not have, because we would be here for a while. And I'm actually excited that I can say that we would be here for a while talking about a lot of the new black projects that are coming out. So that is really exciting. We sometimes kind of get into this doom and gloom about the diversity not being there, but I also think it's a good opportunity to talk about when there's good things happening. So that's what we'll be doing. But when I said I'm going to talk about this at a spectrum, I've got two people on here that irk me, and I want to talk about why they irk me. And I put one at the, I find both their projects can be problematic. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad. I think you just need to be aware of them as you watch them. There might be some representation that's happening in that we have to take with a grain of salt. So at one end, I'll start with Shonda Rhimes, and at the end, I'll get to Lana Waithe. Love them both. They have definitely blazed trails here in the last 10, 15 years. Shonda earlier, and then Lana Waithe is on a tear right now. They definitely blazed some trails and opened doors, but there's some cost coming with their projects. So I want to talk about that. So we'll start with Shonda. Shonda Vision, been running ABC basically the last, how long is Grey's, however long Grey's has been on, and before Kenya Barris became a thing. She's basically been running ABC. And ABC could fight me and argue with me about that, but y'all don't have any receipts to throw back at me. With Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder. And the only reason she's even really at Netflix is because y'all wouldn't re-up, or y'all was balking about her contract. So that's kind of on you. But if you've watched Dear White People, not Dear Black People. If you've watched Dear White People, and specifically the one on Netflix, when it has the Scandal ripoff, and you see the black people that are struggling, like they hate watch it because they want to support the creator, but they're not really excited about the show. Like Scandal, How to Get, I mean, those shows are not soap operas, but they're also just okay. They do some tired tropes. And it's not that, and again, Grey's is largely a white cast. So while we were supporting the black producer in that's largely a white cast. Scandal, we're seeing Kerry Washington fawn over a white figure. So we didn't even get a black president out of it. Now, Papa Pope, Joe Morton, we've loved Joe Morton on this show, and it's not a dig at Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington is amazing, but we got Papa Pope out of it. Joe Morton, he's amazing. Every sci-fi piece he's ever touched and been in, so he's amazing. They bring a ton of gravitas to their roles, but it's still like, but the substance of the show is not like we got the Black West Wing. That's not what happened. So yeah, and then we get to Bridgerton, and I hate Bridgerton with every fiber of my being. I have a link here about the Queen Charlotte spinoff. I'm not going to talk about it. Because I don't care. I watched 2 episodes of Bridgerton and I was out. Bridgerton to me is as bad as Shadow and Bone is with its colorism and just blatant race issues that just don't get talked about. So that's like a fantasy land I just can't put myself into. So either one of those shows, I just nope, no. So if you like those, cool. I assume you like really fantastical takes, and if that's your take, fine. But that's more supporting Shonda than to me it is supporting the culture, or supporting the black community, supporting the black promotion of the culture. So again, it's not to beat her up about it. But if you want me to sign off on it, I can't do it. I cannot do it. It's just not going to happen. But have definitely like How to Get Away with Murder. It's not that Viola Davis didn't have attention before. She definitely has attention now. And it's just like skyrocketed past. I try to imagine that The Help didn't happen. I just like block that out. But like Fences, so she worked with someone later on this list, Barry Jenkins, of a show, Widows. Sorry, movie. It's a movie with Viola Davis called Widows, which is actually a fantastic remake of an Australian film of a group of widows that goes on bank heists and stuff like that. So it's really good. So yeah, has launched some people from her shows, but the actual shows themselves, I'm good. So I'd rather you just go watch Dear White People and watch those scenes, and that will tell you a lot of how I feel about her shows. But we gotta talk about one of my faves. Trevor watched Scandal just to see Kerry Washington walking around. Her power walk is quite impressive. That's probably the most West Wing thing of Scandal is just Kerry Washington's power walk and pantsuit power walk. Yeah. Let's see, Shonda since 2005, Grey's Anatomy. That's true. Yeah. So, wow, 16 years. Wow. I'm getting up there. Let's not talk about that. Misha Green. If you are, as you know, Misha Green did Lovecraft Country most recently. Has been done a number of movies, but like really nailed it with Lovecraft Country on HBO, which wrapped its first season last year, and season 2. I don't know if it will be coming by the end of this year. I suspect HBO probably wants it to come by the end of this year, and they've. It's just that whole writing room is fantastic, and when I talk about black representation being done really well, is there some racial terror in Lovecraft Country because of the time period? Yes. And there might be 1 or 2 moments where it's a little heavy, right? A little heavy-handed. But I also see a lot of autonomy for those characters later on out of those moments as well. So the show doesn't exist just to see black people in terrible positions being abused. It's also about empowering those individuals to fight out of their own circumstance. I really like that. I would like to see more of that. And I also just like seeing black people be black nerds. Jonathan Majors, like, that's me. I mean, I'm not as swole as Jonathan Majors, but I was looking at him. I'm like, that's me. That's me in a TV series. Someone that's had military service, loves reading nerdy books. Me, more movies and TV, but in the time period, yeah, I probably would have been reading more books. And I'm like, okay. I felt like I've been seen in shows before, but like that, I was like, yes, I wholeheartedly sign off on this. And seeing their whole crew go on a variety of different adventures, it's like, it had its moments that felt like Supernatural, Goonies, Indiana Jones, very pulp, very Erie, Indiana, if you want to go down that direction as well. Erie, Indiana was a show that I loved growing up, also as a kid, because those were kids running around doing that. So I love everything about Lovecraft Country. So Misha Green, I don't know what's gonna happen in season 2, but like I'm signed up for it, and we're excited for any of the projects that come down the pipe for you. Ava DuVernay, I actually have a figurine of her. Scoop. So Ava DuVernay watches over me as I'm doing all my shows, along with Cheaty. Cheaty's up there as well. I swear, I'm gonna figure out the desk so I can get you some shots of figurines here on the old desk. So, it feels like every black director. I was gonna say with these next couple, it almost feels like every black director has to do something on the civil rights movement or like a slave piece. It's almost like that's a rite of passage. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and then we do need those to be brought back up in the pop culture every once in a while. So, and it's kind of like this is not a knock on Chadwick Boseman, because I was so glad he got Black Panther, because we felt like he was going to do every black biographical role, because he was playing Thurgood Marshall, and then he was Jackie Robinson, and he played James Brown, and we're like, if this Negro gets one more biographical role, that's it. That's all he's going to be doing. Then he got Black Panther, and the rest is history. So I joke about that because Ava DuVernay did Selma, and that's a fantastic movie as well. Most recently, he's going to be doing Wings of Fire animated series. So it's a book series that got picked up and be created on animated series on Netflix, and should be picking that up. And I think the only movie of hers I'm kind of like ambivalent about is Wrinkle of Time. That one just didn't quite do it for me. So if I had to like tell Ava to go back to the drawing board on some things, it might just be like when she's getting more fantastical. But if you enjoy that movie, cool. And she's also on my list of I'm always going to be interested to see what she does next. There's a really great scene with her and Kenya Barris, who I'll get to a little bit later on this list. And her and Lena Waithe. There's a couple other people that are on that. Black AF is a show on Netflix that Kenya Barris did, starring himself, and they're just having a conversation on this issue of diversity. Oh, she fell over. No, Ava. No, Ava. But yeah, I feel like I'm gonna fail to recall the episode correctly. But they're having this conversation on the ability to call out other black creatives on what they're doing to the art form. We're gonna get to that later when we talk about Lena Waithe, which is funny that she was in that episode. But yeah, that would be like I feel comfortable saying like there's some things Ava could make some adjustments on when it gets to like more sci-fi elements. But like when it comes to like documentary or like more drama-driven stuff, she's got it. All right, so we're gonna keep on the biographical train because Barry Jenkins has also got a new limited series, 10-episode series about the Underground Railroad coming out soon. He did a really great interview of Deadline. I'm not going to recount that entire interview here, but y'all should go check that out. And that's why I was joking about him also kind of had like, it feels like every black director eventually has to do some kind of black history project. So, and that's fine. It's just, just interesting to me. Now, where you may also know Barry Jenkins from is his movie Moonlight won for best picture, and that was well deserved. And it's a complete 180 from a typical like slave biopic. It's a very modern black experience movie, and a particularly black queer black life experience movie set in more modern times. Something that we don't get to see a whole lot of. So shout out to Barry for that win. That was well deserved. He was also director on If Beale Street Could Talk. That also was just a fantastic fantastic movie as well. And on that one, he was a writer and producer. So he's been director and writer for Moonlight and Beale Street Could Talk, but then also was a producer on If Beale Street Could Talk. Has also directed an episode or two of Dear White People as well. So that's, again, that Netflix show that I think if you have not watched it, you should be doing that as well. Specifically for the Underground Railroad, he'll be producer, writer, and director. So, yeah, just really, really excited to see what he's got coming up. I don't know if that's out. I did not get the... let me see. I should have had that. I apologize. I should have had that up before the show. But oh, it is already out. Yeah, it came out last week. That's why I was like, I'm getting ads and stuff for it. So, yeah, that came... Yeah. Thank you, Taryn. Yeah, out on Amazon Prime. So, everyone go check that out. Really curious to see how that goes. What do we got next? All right, so I got to get Steve McQueen up here. Wait, not that Steve McQueen. There you go. That's the right Steve McQueen. And yes, I did pull up 2 photos of Steve McQueen to be able to pull that bit. Another black person has to do a slave biopic. So you might know Steve McQueen for 12 Years a Slave, and 12 Years a Slave is a fine movie. It's not one that it's not exactly one that I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like in the same way of Selma. Like, I want to give Ava and Steve their due for the work they did on those movies and the what that helps people see. But as a black person, that's not exactly the first one I want to go pop in to watch. Because again, is it representation of black people on screen? Yeah. But that exactly, yeah, that's not a great time. I'm not like chopping popcorn down watching 12 Years a Slave. And he's already gotten out of slavery and got pulled back, so I'm already pissed watching it. That's not a fun time for me. That's just not a fun time. But the Small Axe Anthology, so this is a film series created by and directed by Steve McQueen. So it consists of 5 films that tell different stories about West Indian immigrants in London from the 1960s to the 1980s. So just quite a different approach and genre for him. Gets him outside of his. Actually, let me pull back. So I want to go back to. Yeah, considerable change for him. I told you that he did Widows with Viola Davis, so it gets him to more like an action series, and that's also the first one he did with kind of a bigger studio. Most of his films have been released with Fox Searchlight, and then Widows with 20th Century Fox, and then Small Axe got released on BBC and Amazon Prime Video. And on those last 2, Widows and Small Axe, he's been, again, director, writer, producer. So like seeing that combo come up quite a bit. Let's see. Taryn says 12 Years a Slave over Django Unchained. Nah. I mean, I'll be honest. Seeing Django shoot folks up, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of black folks that are looking at Django and being like, man, that ain't great. Okay, so here's probably a good way. Here's probably a good way to say it, and it's not excusing the other things that happen in Django. So I want to be clear. That's not what I'm saying. But a difference between Django and or why Django and Lovecraft are closer together compared to why Django and Lovecraft Country would be closer together than them or 12 Years is that there's autonomy for Django in that movie to actually be a hero and like take over control of his life. So again, that's not happening in some of these other movies. Like just watching a slave get beat to shit in a movie is just not not necessarily not just that it's not interesting. It's just we've seen that so much already. Kunta Kinte, your name is Toby, is a black meme and like popular in black culture for a reason. We joke about it all the time because it's not a thing that black folks aren't running back to go watch Roots. Was Roots an important series on TV? Yeah, but black folks are not running back to go watch Roots. We'd much rather throw in Friday or Friday After Next, right? So like, there's got to be black progress or like some kind of pride that can happen at. Tarantino torture porn over 12. But I guess I guess I'm not trying to equate the torture that's happening in both movies. I'm trying to equate, but what happens to the characters after that? That's why I said we could have a long debate about the violence that happens in those films, but as me personally, I'd rather see Django get his opportunity to shine much better than I would in 12 Years a Slave, or someone's like, hey, go watch Amistad. It's like, no, I don't. No, give me Django. Give me that any day over watching 12 Years a Slave. And 12 Years a Slave is still a good movie. Yeah, it's still better than some of the other things we're going to talk about on here. But again, it's really about Jamie Foxx's character Django gets to be his own man by the end of the movie. To me, that's really important. So, yeah, man, we might need to have a, we're not going to do it right now. We might need to have that conversation later, like, and flesh that out. Cause I think there's some other things that need to be talked about in that, Taryn. So I like that question. That's a good question. Yes, but Steve McQueen, I don't know what movie he's doing next though. Cause Widows was like 2 years ago. So I haven't heard about anything new coming out, but, I mean, he's got the cachet to probably knock that out. Okay, so these next two are really the ones that are like, they're not having a competition per se. That's not what's happening, but I kind of feel like it is. Like they're both like I keep hearing announcement after announcement from these two, and I'm really excited about it. So it's Issa Rae and Regina King. So Issa Rae was the creator of Insecure, and also stars on that show for HBO. And is starting a new reality series on HBO Max called Sweet Life Los Angeles, which explores young black LA life, and it will be coming out on the streaming service sometime later this year. It will be coming from Issa Rae's production company. Issa Rae also is bringing back Project Greenlight, that Matt Damon, Ben Affleck movie. Young movie development show where you kind of like help a producer, help a young director, and you kind of like narrow it down to a group, find one person would effectively win, and then you help walk that person through the process. So she's bringing that back to HBO as well. She's also been in skits on Black Lady Sketch Show. So Issa's just killing it. I like it. I don't know what else to say for her. It's like she's just knocking it out of the park. I hope they don't offer her a Marvel role. Like if she can direct a Marvel movie, cool. But I hope she doesn't have to be in front. And that's not a knock on her acting at all. I just don't think Issa, you can do better than Marvel. You can do better than Marvel. I know it's the money cow. And if you want to direct there and get that paycheck, I'm cool with that. But you don't get trapped in that brain suck, that toilet suck of where brains go to just evaporate. And we talked about this on Wednesday. Regina King is going to direct and produce the feature adaptation of Bitter Root. It's about a set of monster hunters, a black family of monster hunters in the Harlem Renaissance time period in New York. Most recently, she comes off of like Golden Globe wins for her directing on One Night in Miami, which is a fantastic biopic. Just came off of Watchmen, did a fantastic job there. And who knows what Regina King's gonna do next after Bitter Root. So she's been on a roll, and I like seeing it. If Bill Street Could Talk, it just came off a great performance acting in that. So those two are just like stacking up project after project, and it's really cool. Another person has been stacking up projects, but I wish he would get a new naming scheme, has been Kenya Barris. So just yesterday we learned that he was going to be having a new show. Oh, maybe. So Oldish, he's going to have a new show called Oldish, which would be which would continue like Lawrence Fishburne and Jennifer Lewis. Those are the grandparents in Blackish. Continue their story in a new show. So that's cool. Again, kind of, come on, can we stop putting ish on the end of everything? Kenya, you can do, come on. There's other show titles, Kenya. There's other show titles, Kenya. But there's a new show also potentially in development, Brownish, which is star Eva Longoria, and follow a Latinx family and their struggles in America as well. I'm actually more excited about that than I am Oldish, just because like those are stories that don't get told as much. For being honest, if we're talking about black representation versus like Hispanic representation, it's pretty bottom of the barrel for Hispanic representation in Hollywood and on TV. So yeah, I'd be more excited about this. The only thing and again, I joked about the naming convention, but also just it's a lot of projects that are like mixed dish. It's not that it's bad, but it's already been canceled after 2 seasons. Grownish wasn't even allowed to be on ABC. They had to put it on Freeform. It's not a knock on Freeform, but it's just kind of like you would have gotten more eyes on it being on ABC. And then Black AF on Netflix. It got better by the last couple episodes, but Kenya Barris is not a great actor, so I'm not saying he's messing up, but he might be stretching himself a little too thin. But I mean, I want to see his excellence happen, but let's make sure excellent things are coming out. Brownish excites me a lot, though. I'd be more excited to see what Eva Longoria is also being a producer on that, what they would come up with. So it'd be really cool. But again, that one's still in concept stage, so we don't know for sure if that's going to happen yet. But if I had to put my money on it, I would like to put my stake on it. I'd rather put my stake on that. Cool. And then we're going to talk 2 last things. So the second to last person is not a producer, but there's a great article from Bazuma St. John. Bazoma St. John. She's been a CMO, Chief Marketing Executive, Chief Marketing Officer for a variety of companies, but most recently has been working with Netflix, and did a really fantastic op-ed about what it means to be successful as a black executive and what your success can mean for other black executives coming up behind you, and talking about this fear that if you fail, you may set your other peers back in their negotiations or their attempts to advance becoming CEOs and so on and so forth. So I won't really quote the entire article, but I think that's a very applicable comment for the producers I've just listed, is that I have to imagine there's some trepidation and fear on their parts on the things that they take on. Even though we are in a massive wave of success, and there's lots of people I did not get to talk about on here that also should be mentioned. I just don't have time to do that. So again, while the wave is a lot stronger, the money is there that hasn't been there in a long time or ever. I just think she speaks really well about speaks very astutely about what that situation feels like when you're at the top, but there's not a lot of people that are like you in that space, and what can happen if you stumble, and what that does for everyone that's coming up behind you. So I think that's very applicable right now to this producing wave that we have, this strong wave of black directors coming up on the forefront. So I really appreciate it. I'll give a link to that. We'll throw that in the comments for folks that want to read it, but it's really good, and I think it applies to what we're talking about. So, I talked about Shonda Rhimes to start the show, and if I needed to succinctly say what my problems with her are, it's really just more of like I don't think the writing is great for that show. It's like, if that's what I have to put my horse behind for black representation, I would kind of rather do that than what the next person I'm going to talk about. So Lena Waithe, she's been rightly criticized for this recent Hulu series called Them, which is very much a black horror anthology show. And people talk about, if we're talking about torture porn, between 12 Years, Tarantino's Django, some of the rougher scenes in Lovecraft Country, Them them takes the cake. And I have not finished it. I don't know if I will finish it. I probably should before I don't want to make large proclamations. But so if we have the other end of these, if we have one end of the spectrum where it's like mediocrity as representation, there can also be black harm on the other end, where it's like you're serving up a black torture as the entertainment. And again, with the other ones that I've mentioned that still have that, they've either been historical, and to be clear, I'm not saying historical is a pass, but usually they've been historical and have some context to why that's happening. And generally, while audiences, like especially black audiences, are tired of that, we'll at least understand where that's coming from. So again, not really something we're excited to see, and that's why we don't want that to be the main representation. That's why that joke about directors always having to do that kind of rite of passage of making a movie like that to be recognized. But again, that's why I talked earlier, is that to me, Django, it's like, but I get my retribution at the end. And not that should necessarily be the, always be the formula. Cause otherwise then we're just getting into a cycle of, we're just making more Rambos and we're making more, Death Wishes, just switching and putting black people in it. And then instead of it being, they killed your whole family, they did and incited racial terror on you. So that's not necessarily a good thing either. I'm just more inclined towards that, but I have to also say that's not necessarily a good thing. But then moving past that is like the racial terror, like really going up to the nth degree. And so, an article I was reading was referencing Get Out, and I'm like, I don't really feel racial terror in Get Out. I feel dread. I feel dread for Daniel Kaluuya's character in that film, wondering if he's going to get out. That is totally true. But he's not getting gouged out in the eyes. Attack dog, sick dog. I forget some other things that happened in the show. Again, I need to finish it to give it a fair shake. But I'm also trusting other black reviewers and critics that have come in on this pretty strongly against Lena regarding that show, and just their thoughts on black representation overall, and from her perspective. So this is not saying that they should not produce or create anymore. That's not at all what I'm saying. And I'm kind of really excited to see, because they've taken the lead in the newest season of Masters of None, since Aziz Ansari has stepped aside. Although I think he still makes some cameos in it. So her original character in the first two seasons, kind of stepped up as like the main character now. And given the anthology feel of that show, it's like, I think that would actually work out pretty well. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they do there. But in regards to this specific show, them on Hulu, it's not necessarily the representation I'm excited about. So yeah, so I didn't mean to leave it on a downer. It's not exactly what I meant. It was just it's kind of an honest truth that I just gave you a wide range of black creatives doing a variety of different, oh, dang it. I did not change the photos. Y'all should have said something. Yeah, there goes a photo for Lena. So yeah. Yeah, that's not to leave it on a bummer, but I feel like giving you that whole range. I'm telling you who I'm excited about. Even if I am excited about that, I want to give you the caveats and things to be aware of as you watch those shows. So even when I said about Shonda, if you love Grey's Anatomy, cool. If you liked Scandal when it was on, if you liked How to Get Away with Murder, cool. I don't think less of you or anything like that. I probably would think a little less of you if Bridgerton is your favorite show. When people talk about warning signs on a date, if someone's like, my favorite show is Bridgerton, you're telling me that to me as a black guy, I'm probably a little concerned. Or if I'm like, hey, what black television have you watched recently? And you said Bridgerton, that would be a red flag for me. That would be my do not pass go, do not collect $200. Someone bring the check out right now. I'm going to leave. So that specific property. The rest of Shonda's, it'd be like whatever. That one in particular just really, really irks me. I guess I put Shadow and Bone in that as well, or them. but those free shows. So we know these creators are also capable of doing some other amazing things as well. So I don't want to hold them to just the one thing they've done that's I find egregious or problematic. But yeah, this is just giving you a guide. I could almost put these on like a thermometer, or actually put them on, like, spectrum them out, and talk about why I like them in a written space as well. If that helps you visualize that and think about that. Yeah, but this is also my opinion. This is Commander Shipp's opinion. Every black people are not a monolith. I cannot speak for all black people and how we feel about a particular person. I can give you trends. I can give you general impressions and feelings of the community, right? So it's not. So I do think that's fair. Of like, hey, when I say Black Twitter doesn't like this person, it's generally that whenever they make a dumb comment, Black Twitter loves to rag that particular person. Or in particular in Lena Waithe's case, Black Twitter got all over them when them came out. So that's just an astute observation of like, hey, this is things I'm noticing in my culture. So, but again, I don't get to speak for everyone, and you still need to take it within the context of this is Commander Shipp talking. So, all right. That's all I have for you tonight on Super Blerd Variety Hour. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Again, we do this every other week. So in the intervening weeks, it would be Red Shirt Rejects. I don't star, or I don't host on that show. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I don't host on that show. Kyle Nelson and Trevor Law host on that show. I just produce behind the scenes, but I also chime in with my thoughts because I've also watched. Trevor and Kyle have watched way more Star Trek TV than I have, but I probably have watched the movies just as many times as they have watched the movies. So that's definitely where I can get my expertise on that series. And they're definitely the bigger Trekkies than I am. But yeah. And then if you want to catch me on, we talked Wednesday night about Commander Shipp show, and me and Tom have been just blasted with busyness. So we might be moving that. It'd still be a weekly show. We might be moving it from Wednesdays to another day. I'll let you know that. Tentatively, it's still going to be on Wednesdays right now, but we'll let you know when that change actually happens. And as always, if you need full gaming news, full gaming movie, TV news, Monday night State of Nerd Union with me and Grandmaster Fro, Steve Fox. That's at 8 p.m. Central. You can catch us there every Monday night. But yeah. And then on Fridays, if there's any news we missed throughout the week, Taryn, our wonderful Taryn, who you've seen here in the comments on Twitch, if you're watching on Twitch, and I've been referencing them throughout the night. And also I referenced Trevor I was talking about throughout the show. That's the same Trevor that's been on Red Shirt Rejects. Taryn runs the rundown, they have a wonderful voice and host behind the rundown and gives you all the news that we missed throughout the week and covers that on Friday. And I help produce that and get that out as timely as possible on Friday. So, Taryn says, "Oh, really? For teas?" Yeah, I just think we're possibly talking about doing Sundays because it would just give us a night free on the weeknights to have a little bit more rest, and then just do it on Sunday afternoons or something like that. So, we will figure that out. That's not that's not confirmed or anything like that. We'll figure that out. But yes, this has been Commander Shipp. Trevor saying, yes, we are. Yeah. This has been Commander Shipp for Super Blerd Variety Hour. I'll see you in 2 weeks. So that will be, that'll take us into June. So I will have the first Thursday of June, kicking off with Super Blerd Variety Hour. So thank you all for joining us. If you have not hit subscribe, make sure you do that. Hit that notification. The bell notification on YouTube, the join, subscribe on Twitch and on Facebook, or a like on Facebook. That always helps us, and make sure that you see our videos whenever we go live. So we appreciate that. And we love the support we get from our Patreon followers, Doug Schumann, Shelby Johnson, Vici, and Nell Cherry. Thank you for your contributions every month to help us run the website and run these shows. And until next